In the spring of 2017, I was pinned under a motorcycle on the side of a mountain in Idaho, and the only other person on that trail was my 17-year-old son. I couldn't get up. I'm Dale Dixon. I spent 15 years in broadcast news. I've spent 24 coaching leaders through high-stakes moments, and those 20 minutes on the mountain taught me more about pressure than both careers combined. Today, you're getting the instrument that got me down the hill. I call it the dial. So that morning started as the kind you remember. I was riding a motorcycle up a single-track trail. Perfect, my son ahead of me on a dirt bike. The two of us doing the thing we loved, absolutely loved. And then I hit a tree root. So the rear end washes out, I lose traction, and the bike comes down on top of me on the side of the hill. In the quiet, right after, I can still hear that engine ticking. My leg is pinned under about 500 pounds of motorcycle. The thing that scares me is the math, way more than the pain. My son is up ahead. He's going to turn around, come back down that trail, and find his dad on the ground. That thought put me to work. I start breathing, long exhales, slower than my body wants to go, and I watch the panic back off a step at a time. See, I wear an Oura ring. I track this stuff religiously. You can ask my family just how much fun that makes me at dinner. And the record backs up the memory. So pinned under a motorcycle with an injury that was a lot worse than I was willing to admit, I brought my own heart rate down on purpose. Years later, I asked my son what he saw when he came around that bend. So he thought about it, went back through the photos, and gave me just two words that I've been chewing on ever since. Startled, but calm. Was that the right move, or did I get lucky, talking myself steady at the exact moment a smarter man would have been yelling for help? This is the Presence Lab podcast, where we build presence under pressure by starting with the body that walks into the room. Today, you're getting one instrument, the dial. And once you can see it, you'll understand why most of what you've been told about nerves points you at the wrong setting entirely. You're going to get the mechanism, what's actually happening in the body before a moment that matters. You're going to get 3 moves you can run this week. One for the first spike, one for aiming it, and one that explains how a man with a broken leg stayed steady without a single technique in reach. And there is a field guide built for this episode with all 3 moves, a 60-second pre-room sequence, a 7-day tracker. It's free at daledixon.me/dial. And I'll point you back there before we're done. You can also find that link in the show notes. So you know the feeling before the big meeting. The heart picks up. For me, I get this tightness in the top of my chest, base of my neck. The breathing climbs high into the chest. The hands feel just a half second behind. And the first instinct is to make it stop. Deep breaths, a lap around the block, whatever it takes to get back to calm before the door opens. I completely understand that instinct. It still hits me. I've taught breathing work for years. I built scenes in my book, Sweating Bullets, around settling the body, and reaching for calm feels like the responsible move, the professional move, the thing a composed leader would do. For a long time, I taught it that way myself. Here's why it breaks down under real pressure. When researchers put people in front of something hard, a speech, a negotiation, a timed test with someone watching, the ones instructed to calm down performed worse than the ones given a different instruction we're going to get to in a minute. The reason is distance. Calm sits a long way from where the body is in the moment. The system is running hot, and we're asking it to go cold on command, in the hallway, in the 90 seconds before our name gets called. That request fails at the worst possible moment, which convinces us we're bad at managing nerves, when the truth is we were handed the wrong assignment. The surge was never a malfunction. It's the body coming online. Today we learn to aim it. Would you rather walk in empty or walk in loaded and pointed at the job? So here's where this shows up. A leader sits down for the board readout and feels the pulse climb into her ears. A founder is just one beat from a hard number in the all hands, and the room goes a little tight and a little far away. A leader who has run these meetings for 20 years still feels his voice go thin the second the CEO looks up from the table. The quiet story we attach to that feeling does the real damage. We decide the feeling is proof we're behind, that the pros stopped feeling this years ago and we somehow missed the exit. We've all had the version of ourselves we prepared fail to show up, replaced by a faster, thinner, more careful version we never invited to the game. We blame the nerves. The nerves were doing their job the whole time. Here's what's actually happening. Honest version, no cartoon brain science. The body ramps up in almost exactly the same way, whether we're terrified or thrilled. Racing pulse, tunneled vision, a focus, a flood of energy, the same hardware either way. What changes the outcome is the read our system puts on it. When we read the surge as a threat, the body braces to protect us. When we read the same surge as the system getting ready, something measurable shifts. People coached to treat their arousal as fuel showed blood vessels opening up instead of clamping down, the heart moving blood more efficiently, attention released from hunting the room for danger. Same stress, different plumbing. So if you caught The Switch, the episode, a while back, you already know the nervous system reads every high-stakes moment as either a threat or a challenge, and that those two reads feel completely different from the inside. The dial is how we get a vote in that read. There's a second layer, and this is the one that took me years and a broken leg to understand. There's the read we put on this one moment, and underneath it, there's the setting the body defaults to when there's no time to decide anything at all. So researchers separated those two in a clever study. They shifted how people saw stress in general, the deep belief about whether stress wrecks you or readies you, and the people carrying a stress is enhancing default produced sharper increases in the body's growth and recovery hormones, the chemistry that builds you back up. Here's the part that matters. That happened whether the moment felt like a challenge or a threat. The default worked underneath the read. That's the piece that finally explained my mountain. By any honest measure, a motorcycle on top of me with a broken leg on the side of a mountain is a threat, full stop. I never talked myself into seeing it as an opportunity. What I had was a setting, and it was trained over decades, that leaned my body toward steady, even inside a real threat that I'd never rehearsed. So the story we carry about the stress cuts the other way too. A large study followed almost 30,000 adults for years, and the people under heavy stress who also believed the stress was harming them were far more likely to die early, while people just as stressed who did not share that belief were not at the same elevated risk. Same stress, different story riding on top of it. And over a long enough timeline, the story we carry can show up in the body. There's even a name for the sequence I ran on that trail, one we teach here. Regulate first, then relate, then reason. I could never have thought through the plan to get off that mountain with a nervous system still screaming. Regulate, then relate, then reason. In that order every single time. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, following the show is the simplest way to make sure the next one finds you. And right back into it, the picture to keep is this. We've been told our nerves are a check engine light, a signal that something is broken and we should pull over. That story is wrong, and it is so expensive. Our nerves are a tachometer. The needle climbing toward the red is the engine entering the range where it has the most to give. Same needle, two completely different stories about what it means. A dial also does something a warning light was never built to do. It turns both directions. We turn it up to meet a room that needs more of us. We turn it down to anchor a person who needs us steady. That's the whole instrument, a dial we set to match the job in front of us. Move number 1, the relabel. This one is for the first spike, the moment the surge arrives and our hand reaches for the door. The move is to name the sensation as fuel, and the line runs word for word. This is my system loading. This is fuel. You've heard me call this getting our butterflies in formation. Saying it does way more than a pep talk ever could, because we're telling the body the truth about what the arousal is for, which is the exact shift that opens the vessels instead of clamping them. Saying it out loud creates a state change. Move number 2, the turn. Once we've relabeled the surge, we point it, and the direction depends entirely on the job. When the job is to perform, we turn it up. Calm is across the room, and we're going to never make it in time, so we aim one door over at ready. Excitement and nerves are the same high energy state wearing different clothes, and people who get excited instead of chasing calm sing better, speak better, and do hard math better under pressure. The line here, I'm getting ready. When the job is to steady someone else, we turn it the other way. And this is the move almost nobody teaches. In Sweating Bullets, there is a scene at a gym. Chloe puts Mac on a Bosu ball, that wobbly half dome, and alone he can barely stand on it. Then she has him clasp hands and lead toward another person, a steady person, and his balance locks in immediately. We find our footing faster leaning toward a steady nervous system than fighting for it alone. On that mountain, I was the Bosu ball for my son. My steady was the thing he got to lean into. Your calm isn't what soothes your people. Your calm is what lets them perform. Move number 3, the rep. Now, I know what you're thinking right about here. You're thinking, okay, Dale, that's great in a hallway before a meeting, but nobody's relabeling anything with a motorcycle on their leg. Exactly right. And that's the point of the third move, the one that actually saved me, the least dramatic of the 3. In a true crisis, there's no time to relabel and turn. The pain's too loud, and what runs in the moment is whatever setting we already installed. We install it the boring way, 1 rep at a time, in the small moments that seem too minor to count, long before the tree root takes me out. This is the same truth underneath every drill in Sweating Bullets. Presence under pressure is a setting we train way more than a personality we were born with. Every time we choose the state a small moment needs, the tough email, the tense one-on-one, the meeting we would rather skip, we're turning the dial by hand. And a dial turned by hand often enough eventually has a resting place that it returns to on its own. That resting place is what shows up when a motorcycle lands on you. So here's the whole thing in one breath. The gap between the leader who gets rattled and the leader who gets ready was never how much they felt, because both of them felt the surge. The difference was the read they put on it and the setting they trained underneath it. And that difference lives in the blood vessels, in the hormones, in whether the body spends the moment building us up or bracing for a blow. We set the dial. We turn it up to meet the room. We turn it down to anchor the person. And we install the resting place with reps nobody claps for. Calm isn't the absence of the startle. It's what you built underneath it. Which brings me back to the mountain. My son got the bike off me and rode it down the hill. Flagged down a few other riders for help, came back and stayed with me. He ran the entire rescue. Later, an x-ray told me that I'd been arguing with a spiral fracture of the tibia and fibula plus a broken ankle. I was sure it was a sprain. Even the regulated guy talks himself down from the real number. So years later, I asked my son what he remembered about how I was on the ground. Startled but calm. Then I asked the question I actually needed answered. When you saw I was steady, did it change anything about what you did next? His answer, there was urgency, but nothing frantic about it. There was a problem that needed solving. It just needed to be done quickly. So was it the right move on that mountain? I think it was. And the honest reason matters. The fear never left, not for a second. I set the dial to the job the moment required, and the person next to me got to lean on it. Urgency, but nothing frantic. That's a young man whose nervous system inherited the setting, fast but never flooded, and he performed inside it. He borrowed way more than my calm. He borrowed the whole dial position. Startled but calm in me became urgent but not frantic in him, proven on a trail by a teenager who'd never heard a word of the science. So the field guide for this is at daledixon.me/dial. Inside, you're going to find the relabel line for the first spike, the turn worked out in both directions, a 7-day rep tracker to start installing your own resting place, and a 60-second sequence to run in the hallway before the room that matters. It's free. Go grab a hold of it. It means so much if you like and subscribe and share this episode. Now, this conversation keeps going after the episode ends. The Presence Lab has a free online community, and it's where I actually hang out. Members get live Q&A with me, and if today stirred up something you want to talk through, that's where you will find me. Join free at daledixon.me/community. Say that one more time correctly, daledixon.me/community. The link also in the description. You don't need calmer nerves. You need a hand on the dial. Startled but calm in you becomes urgent but not frantic in them, and the people next to you get to lean on it. I'm Dale Dixon. This is the Presence Lab podcast. I'll see you next time.